Hello, everyone. This story is set in the heart of Annapolis, Maryland, inside a newsroom hummed with the day's stories. For the journalists of the Capital Gazette, it was a place of purpose and passion. Despite this, on June 28, 2018, that place of purpose would become a site of unimaginable horror. Let's get right into it. The tragedy at the Capital Gazette was the culmination of years of animosity from an individual with a grievance against the newspaper. This individual harbored a deep-seated grudge stemming from an article published years prior that reported on his criminal harassment charges. His actions escalated over time, including online threats and a failed lawsuit against the paper. On the afternoon of June 28, 2018, the individual entered the Capital Gazette office and opened fire.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news. A shooting this afternoon in Annapolis, Maryland, with multiple people reported shot in the building that houses the Annapolis Capital Gazette, a newspaper owned by the Baltimore Sun. There's no word of the conditions of those shots or numbers. ATF and other law enforcement officers are on the scene. The building is being searched by police. There is no confirmation of the number of shooters or whether anyone is in custody. NBC's Tom Costello is in our Washington newsroom with the latest details in the still unfolding story. What are you hearing, Tom?
This began with a tweet, active shooter at 888 Bestgate Road, which is the address for the Capital Gazette. And moments ago, the Capital Gazette on their website put out a report. By the way, they are owned by the Baltimore Sun, and this would appear to have been written by somebody in the Baltimore Sun's newsroom. They say, quote, a shooting has occurred at the Capital Gazette in Anne Arundel County, a paper owned by the Baltimore Sun, according to reports from the Gazette staff. Anne Arundel County PD confirming there was an active shooter at that location. Also going on to say ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, confirming it is responding to a shooting incident. This is important. Phil Davis, a Gazette reporter from the Capital Gazette, said that multiple people had been shot. Police did not immediately respond to requests for further information. So this is coming, we believe, from a Baltimore-based reporter talking to people in the Capital Gazette newsroom where they are saying multiple people have been shot, but we do not have their conditions. We have seen people coming out of that building for the last half an hour or so with their arms raised as police want to make sure that the scene is clear of any active shooters, but we do not have confirmation of anybody in custody at this point or of any fatalities, despite a lot of conflicting information out there at this point. Lester, I would just note that as we have watched these images, we've seen the EMS, the fire personnel, and the police at this point, or for the last 20, 30 minutes, really in more of a stand-down position. In other words, we've not seen any urgency running in and out of the building for the better part of 20 or 30 minutes now.
Yeah, and those pictures of people coming out hardly need explanation after what we have certainly all witnessed over the last couple of years. Governor Larry Hogan tweeted just a few moments ago. I'll read it directly from my phone. He says, absolutely devastated to learn of this tragedy in Annapolis. I am in contact with County Executive Steve Shaw, and they're on the scene assisting. Please heed all warnings and stay away from the area, praying for those at the scene and for our community. That's from the governor of Maryland as we watch this situation unfold. A lot of tactical vehicles. There are a lot of activity, but as Tom noted, not any sense of urgency from what we can see from these pictures. But of course, we're only seeing part of this unfold. Obviously, something happened in these offices. That Gazette reporter, Phil Davis, said multiple people had been shot, but we're still not getting any further confirmation from police. But you see the EMS vehicles are now staging at a parking lot in a shopping mall across the street there. We don't have any specific numbers or the conditions of those who have been shot. Tom Moore?
I've just seen a fast note here from the Anne Arundel County EMS, Emergency Medical Services, confirming now to NBC News that, in fact, there are confirmed injuries as a result of a shooting. But at this point, we don't have any details on any potential deaths. So confirmed injuries, which would, in fact, go hand in hand with that reporting from the Gazette reporter on the scene.
All right, Tom Costello, thank you very much. We are obviously going to closely follow this story as events warrant. We will come back on the air. And, of course, full details on this when we see you for NBC Nightly News. For now, I'm Lester Holt, NBC News, New York. Good day.
The attack resulted in the deaths of 5 members of the newspaper staff: Gerald Fishman, Rob Hyacin, John McNamara, Rebecca Smith, and Wendy Winters. Police responded quickly to the scene apprehending the attacker.
Victims coming out. Victims coming out. Police are confirming 2 down at this point. 2 down.
The number of casualties quickly rising.
4 down.
We now know the number to be 5 killed, all of them journalists, at least 2 more injured.
Heard a loud noise, like an incredibly loud bang. Saw a guy holding a gun. The door of the Capital Gazette had been blown to pieces.
Several shots have been fired. Possible shotgun. At least 10 shots heard.
Tragedy hitting home for this local newspaper in Annapolis, Maryland. The Capital Gazette, early this afternoon, finding themselves at the center of a national story, an active shooter situation unfolding inside the newsroom.
He entered the building with a shotgun, and he looked for his victims as he walked through the lower level.
All units, limit your transmissions. Do we have any kind of intel on our shooter? Fight my own with a ponytail.
In about 60 seconds, authorities responding, running inside, and engaging the suspected shooter. Minutes later, the suspect, who police say used a shotgun to carry out his assault, was surrounded by officers and taken into custody.
The shooter is in custody and being interrogated at this time.
The suspected shooter has been identified as 38-year-old Jared Ramos, who may have had a long-running feud with the paper, having sued the paper in 2012 after it reported that he pled guilty to criminal harassment. The newspaper won the case, reporting on what was already public record.
Mass shooters are what typically are called revenge collectors. In other words, their revenge builds up, and it can be as simple as an editorial that might have been written, or a lawsuit that they have lost. The triggering mechanisms for violence tend to be, in these types of cases, tend to be they build up over a period of weeks or even months and possibly years.
Heavily armed police working to get people out safely. About 170 people evacuated, hands in the air, to a reunification center at a nearby mall.
We're doing everything we can to get people out safe, and we're trying to minimize the casualties.
The scene unfolded right behind me here, and just take a look. Hours later, the scene is still very much active. Police using dogs to search for explosives or possible accomplices. Authorities even say they found a canister of smoke grenades.
This is what we trained for. A week ago, we practiced an active shooter training thing. We did not expect something like this to happen in our community, but we were ready, and I don't think we could have put any more resources if you look behind you at what's been done here.
Afterwards, eyewitnesses sharing harrowing stories about what happened inside that building.
Police came through, knocking on our door, grabbing the door, and then checking to make sure we are okay. And the next thing you know, he's like, "You need to get out." And then we had to leave out the building with our hands up behind the building beside us.
Describing the alleged gunman's movements.
Guy was holding what looked like a big shotgun and moving across the entrance of the Capital Gazette office, pointing the gun deeper into the office, like he was targeting people.
Newspaper reporter Phil Davis was inside the newsroom, writing on Twitter, "Gunman shot through the glass door to the office and opened fire on multiple employees. Can't say much more and don't want to declare anyone dead, but it's bad." In another tweet, "There is nothing more terrifying than hearing multiple people get shot while you're under your desk and then hear the gunman reload." Amidst the chaos, the Capital Gazette steadfast in its mission to report the truth, keeping the website updated with articles interviewing reporters who were inside, one describing the scene as a war zone. An employee saying, "I'm a police reporter. I write about this stuff, but as much as I'm going to try to articulate how traumatizing it is to be hiding under your desk, you don't know until you're there and you feel helpless."
The sort of general level of animosity against the media, and secondarily maybe even law enforcement in recent years, is very troubling to me, because people who are on the edge of doing something will use the discontent of others to sort of motivate and sort of rationalize their act of attack.
The president tweeting with the familiar, "My thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. Thank you to all of the first responders who are currently on the scene." Officials say the suspected shooter was apprehended with no wallet and no identification. What's that process like to identify someone who doesn't have an ID and they just do something like this?
When you have no ID on a suspect, no wallet initially,
that is a hurdle that police have to get over. But with all the different means that they have of using photographs, surveillance videos, talking to witnesses, it turns out the suspect may have had some kind of ongoing feud with the paper. It gets done.
So the early reports right now are that perhaps this was very targeted to this specific paper.
Exactly. And again, the police describe this as a classic hometown paper, one that they do business with all the time to get information out to the community. Just a tragic loss for everyone involved.
And tonight, authorities are searching his Maryland residence for further information.
Because you have a shooter that's alive, that means you have to prosecute him. And if you have to prosecute him, you really have to know the tick-tock of what led him to this shooting. The weapon, other potential people involved, and what took him up to the door of the Capital Gazette today.
This attack marks the 154th mass shooting this year. That is, a shooting with at least 4 fatal or non-fatal injuries, part of a seemingly endless cycle of violence that shows no signs of slowing down. And tonight, we learn the names of the victims.
First victim's name is Wendy Winters. Second victim is Rebecca Smith. Third victim is Robert Hyacin. Fourth victim is Gerald Fishman. And the fifth victim is John McNamara.
The Baltimore Sun reporting that Rob Hyacin was an editor for the Gazette and the father of 3. He had just celebrated his 33rd wedding anniversary. Hours ago, the paper's editor Jimmy DeButz with a series of defiant tweets about the heart of the humble newspaper, devastated and heartbroken, numb. The reporters and editors put their all into finding the truth. That is our mission, will always be. And tomorrow, there will be a print edition. For Nightline, I'm Gio Benitez in Annapolis, Maryland.
In the immediate aftermath of the attack, the surviving journalists of the Capital Gazette demonstrated incredible resilience. The very next day, regardless of their grief and trauma, they produced a newspaper, a powerful statement of their commitment to their work and the importance of a free press. For their courage and dedication, they received a special Pulitzer Prize citation. The community of Annapolis and the nation mourned the loss of the victims and rallied in support of the Capital Gazette.
Often we see so much of the focus on the accused shooter in these cases, but we want to make sure our 4 in Your Corner coverage includes careful and respectful attention to each one of those we've lost. 4 in Your Corner's Tony Sadiku and Jasmine Miner are in the newsroom to share this important part of another American tragedy. Jasmine and Tony?
That's right, Patrick. The 5 employees who died in a shooting at the Capital Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland, have been identified.
Their names are Wendy Winters, a reporter, Rebecca Smith, a sales assistant, Robert Hyacin, an editor, Gerald Fishman, an editorial writer, and John McNamara, a reporter and writer. And tonight, we wanted to give you a look at who those 5 journalists were that died in the shooting.
Wendy Winters, a 65-year-old mother of 4, moved to Maryland 20 years ago and began writing for the Annapolis News. Family members say she was, quote, dedicated and loved the work.
Rebecca Smith, who was 34 when she died, was a recent hire, her boss saying she was a valuable asset to the newspaper and, quote, made sure the sales office ran smoothly.
Robert Hyacin, who was 59, celebrated his 33rd wedding anniversary last week with his wife. He leaves behind a wife and 3 children.
61-year-old Gerald Fishman worked with the Annapolis News for 25 years and was said to be quiet but brilliant at his work. He married late in life and leaves behind his wife.
And John McNamara, a 56-year-old sport reporter who worked for the newspaper for 24 years. He saw his position as his dream job. McNamara, who went by Mac, was remembered as a concise writer with extensive knowledge for sports. He leaves behind his wife, who he met while attending the University of Maryland. A memorial was placed outside the Capital Gazette building to honor the journalists who died. On behalf of our newsroom, I'm Tony Sadiku.
And I'm Jasmine Miner, Fox 4 in your corner.
The tragedy also sparked important conversations about the safety of journalists and the vital role of local news in a democratic society. A memorial was later dedicated to the victims, and the date of the shooting was designated as Freedom of the Press Day in Maryland, honoring those who lost their lives in the enduring principles of a free press. The shooting at the Capital Gazette was a horrific event, but the response of the surviving staff and the community highlighted the strength and importance of journalism.
The Capital Gazette gunman will spend the rest of his life in prison. A judge has sentenced Jared Ramos to 5 consecutive life terms without parole. Victims and their loved ones saying justice is served. Hello, everyone. I'm Vic Carter.
And I'm Denise Koch. Welcome to WJZ News at 6 and to those streaming on CBS and Baltimore. Well, the judge announced his decision today after listening to victims and survivors talk about how that day changed their lives forever.
Joy Burnett has followed this trial and now the sentencing. She's live at the memorial to the victims tonight with reaction from prosecutors, survivors, and family members. Joy.
Good afternoon. Well, exactly 3 months ago today, city officials here in Annapolis unveiled the Guardians of the First Amendment Memorial right here over my shoulder. And it was in honor of the 5 people who were shot and killed at the Capital Gazette. Now today, the family members, surviving victims heard the words that they had been waiting for: life without parole.
She will always be my mommy. I don't care that I'm 23 now. She's my mommy.
3 years ago, a gunman walked into the Capital Gazette newsroom and attacked. Gerald Fishman, Rob Hyacinth, John McNamara, Rebecca Smith, and Wendy Winters were killed.
She's gone. She was taken from us.
Back in the summer, a jury determined that the defendant was criminally responsible for that mass shooting. Then on Tuesday, the judge announced his fate. He will spend 5 life sentences behind bars without the possibility of parole.
We just have to do everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else.
Reporter Celine Sanfelice hid under a desk during the 2018 shooting and eventually escaped. She got a moment to face the defendant.
It's an immense amount of closure to be able to see them take him away forever, to never have to think about seeing him again.
Photojournalist Paul Gillespie narrowly escaped that day as a gunshot blew past his head.
I lost 5 of my family members. I was almost killed myself. It's something that haunts me every day.
During a 3-week trial back in the summer, prosecutors argued that a defendant had a grievance with the newspaper after a story they wrote up about him. And that's why he methodically planned the attack and locked the doors from the outside so victims couldn't escape. State's attorney Ann Colt-Litis argued the case and described a final interaction with the shooter as he was walked away.
He thought he had the last word as he left the courtroom. He tried to stare me down. But that didn't work either, because I looked right back at him. He did not have the last word.
Now, in addition to those 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, there was a 6th life sentence for the attempted murder of photojournalist Paul Gillespie. You heard from him in our story. And then an additional 345 years for additional charges associated with this mass shooting. Live at 6 in Annapolis, Joy Burnett for WJZ.
Rest in peace, Gerald Fishman, Rob Hyacinth, John McNamara, Rebecca Smith, and Wendy Winters. Your cumulative legacies serve as a reminder of the dedication and risks faced by journalists and the essential role they play in informing the public. I remember hearing about this when it happened. It was all over the news and it always stuck with me. So I made this video for informational purposes. Do you remember when this happened? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and as usual, if you're a fan of urban legends, folklore, unsolved mysteries, cold cases, and all things mysterious, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel.